connecting the lessons and applying them universally throughout your life. And yeah, one of the perspectives of engaging posturally the pelvic floor, actually, years and years and years ago, I did a lot of reading and study on those two pieces, on tantric sex and on yoga and yogic engagement, and then Pilates, and then through dance, and then also like training. And I had actually connected those dots through this connection in like a chakra approach. So like the chakras are supposed to be these energy centers. Well, they also literally coincide with like ganglion centers, so like nervous cell centers. So there is like greater electrical energy, and the reason you feel aligned in your chakras is because when you have better posture, you're literally aligning your nervous system in a way that you have more fluid electrical flow. So, and part of, yes, that drawing up, right? That drawing up is that sexually, when you're drawing up, you're actually pulling the energy up through those different energy centers, and then you're having it go up your spine, from your pelvic floor up your spine, through the your upper chest and upper back, through the upper part of your head, basically the crown of your head, and then it wraps back down around to your chest, through the diaphragm, the abdominals, and then back down to your groin. And that's supposed to be that circular cycling. And so that also has a physiological representation, like when you're doing what we said, like an RKC plank. So RKC stands for Russian kettlebell. I think it was originally challenge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Russian kettlebell challenge. But it was Pavel Tsutsluin, who has since left the RKC and started his own a second company called Strong First. But Pavel is one of the rare strength and conditioning forces in this world, who's one of the last ones who's really from who was raised and trained in a lot of the Russian modalities, and like a lot of the Russian greats, the great sports scientists. And he speaks a lot to this, irradiation, right? Like connecting of contraction and energy, and like, it's very powerful concepts that go way, way beyond kettlebells. And he talks about, that's why his new company is called Strength First. I'm kind of going off on tangent, but like that strength is the basis, and you can use any tool to accomplish that, right? It's not kettlebell based. But anyway, when they instruct a plank, like an ab plank, it's all about driving the elbows toward the toes and pulling the toes toward the elbows, and having that tension meet in the middle for a maximal contraction. And the way that I cue a plank is I start with the pelvic floor, and then I pull the pelvic floor up, center the pelvis like under you, like rotate it under, pull the belly button in, and then the tension from the belly button travels up the center of the abdominals to the diaphragm, up like out the shoulders, down the elbows, into the hands, and then pulls back into the floor. And from the pelvic floor, it goes down the adductors and the inner hamstrings to the knees, down to the toes and back through the floor, and it circles and then connects, from the toes to the elbows to the floor. So again, it has this circular, almost like chakra-like spiral in this plank, and it's not just muscling the tension from the outside. It's pulling it and connecting it from the inside to the outside. And the same thing with the sort of the cueing of, and I don't want to get in the word cueing, because cueing is irrelevant. Like cueing is all about not what you say, but what the person hears, right? Like cueing is all about the individual, but more so like teaching. Okay, let's go teaching. Teaching from a position perspective or an outside in perspective is it's biasing. It's like, I guess, in a way, I just thought about it. Like, it's biasing the overall message that the world happens to you instead of that you have control over yourself, right? That, like, the position happens to you and that you mean to be in a position, and then you let the position turn on the muscles that you need to turn on. Then you let the position be, the goal in what you're doing, whereas that's really not the goal. The goal is to control yourself in a ninja-like manner and then apply that into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly it.
So it's the physiological, representation of the spiritual world. I don't know, but it's all the same.
It's all the same. And I think it's very uncomfortable to go that deep for a lot of people. I even have found a lot of clientele.
Physically and
everything.
Mental. Yeah,
everything, every aspect.
Physically, it takes patience.
Yeah. A lot of patience. Physically, it takes a lot of patience.
Comfortable.
I mean, I even see clients like wanting to look a certain way amongst their peers in class. And I've had to slow down a lot of people. And they'll get so frustrated with themselves. Like, hey, it's cool. Like, it's cool. It's all right. Just go deep within yourself. Like, you're going to be okay. Like, just keep focusing on the one thing I said. And they're just like, okay. And then you see them spaz down, try to like tense up and go. But anyway, yeah, I think even you look at the emotional and the psychological part of it. It's going that far down. It's like we talked about last time, the last podcast. It's hard truth. It's like, are you able to go that deep down and see the truth of what's going on or not going on? And you can look at that in several facets. You can look at it from the spiritual perspective. You can look at it from a physical perspective, but it's all the same again. What is not holding you together, and that's usually the root. And from a pure physiological perspective, it's going to be pelvic floor. And then if you want to think a spiritual perspective, is your root chakra going up towards, solar plexus, going up towards your crown, right? But usually it's very like heady. It's like all up in the head and the ethers and the crown. And you're like, I'm very cerebral, but nothing is connected to deeper and deeper layers of yourself. And that's why
you felt it was.
Yeah. So there's that lack of groundedness, right?
Yeah.
What's going to ground you in every sense of the word, from that root down to the floor and spreading out to the rest of the world? Like, what's going to ground you as a human being?
Your pelvic floor grounding you into the root.
Exactly.
I agree. It's sort of like the trunk growing into the ground, and you can be, and really so what I teach is that there's an energy flow from, and really it's drawing force from the ground through the big toe, the ball of the foot, up the arch, up the Achilles into the, through the calf that connects to the hamstring. Hamstring ties into the, the adductors in the inner. I'm talking about the two inside hamstrings. There's another one on the outside, the biceps femoris. And then you draw that through into the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor draws to the belly button, transfers around, goes around to the obliques, and then up to, Sumair's doing this as I'm cueing this, by the way. From the obliques back around into the lats and sets the shoulder blades. And it's a spiral that comes all the way. And that's really where force transfer comes from you to the ground and then, exits out of your head. Or you could say it wraps back around the head just like the chakras, closes the ribs down, and then finishes the loop. So essentially, it is a groundedness, right? And we talk about being grounded in life and being grounded in things around you. Well, your body needs to be grounded. And even electrically grounded is a very, earthing is a very interesting concept of becoming, electrically neutral with the world around us and dissipating, electrical magnetic waves and radiation and stored up, electrical differences in our bodies that need to be, removed because of technology and different things like that. So I think it's fascinating how we start with this physical component and we end in a spiritual, but we can also start in a spiritual component and end at a physical. And I think the more that people start to open up to, maybe it's open up to going inside, like, going inside to come back outside, is something that's, I think, really it's not just valuable, obviously. It's instructive, it's meditative.
Totally.
How did you feel when you were doing the breathing? Kind of talk about the breathing a little.
Yeah, I was doing it a second ago, and what was interesting is as I was pulling up from the pelvic floor up into my belly, into my diaphragm, and then breathing deep into that, what was fascinating is the whole spiral from the toes up to the hams and all that. That kind of came naturally. It was less of a strain to like push down to the base of my big toe, lift to my arch, and come up to the hams,
felt more relaxed,
and go to my glutes. And it felt very relaxed. It just kind of happened on its own. I didn't have to do much to it. I mean, there was maybe a few tweaks, but it happened almost automatically, which is awesome because it's the whole concept of going inside out. There's less work actually in the totality of it if you go inside out, but the hardest part is actually going there, like going to the depths of like that part of you and then coming up. In the end, you're going to make life a lot easier. And I think it's a funny theme because, you know, as human beings, we try so hard like to be this external like masterpiece to the world. And we do all these things that we think are going to bring us like, you know, a sense of stability, groundedness. Like we try to like tense up our shoulder blades. We try to tense up everything. We try to like suck our bellies in, and we try to look a certain way. We try to get surgery and all these external things to our appearance. And yet it seems like the answer is the infinite divine intelligence that is your body. Like your body is an intelligent beating being without even like your mind's like just experiencing it. Like your body just does shit. Like what beats your heart? What like sends these electrical impulses down your body and sends like, you know, goes through the synapse and then like conducts a nerve signal? What does it? Like what animates you? Like I don't know. Like something has to be divinely led here. I don't know what the hell it is, but that's intelligent. You know, tap into how freaking intelligent you are. Like that's I mean, I think that's consciousness. Yeah. I mean, interesting. I floated last night, cool. So my back had kind of acted up this week because of a bunch of just postural things slipping out as I'm going through sort of, sort of like unpeeling the last pieces of my dance career and just injuries over the years. But anyway, so I went to float last night, and the one thing I wanted to keep, I kept focusing on, and I've tried to bring into today is, when you're in the tank and there's no senses there, there's nothing there. You're inevitably, if you can remove yourself from the thoughts for a moment and think like, what exists? Because if I'm not just this sack of meat, I'm everything inside of it, but everything inside of me is still meat. So what is deeper than that? You know what I mean? Like you start like thinking about it, it's all tissues, but like really what's deeper than the tissues, what's deeper than all that? And you start to find what your experience is, you know, what they talk about in meditation is the observer, right? Like you're the observer of everything around. But I think there's something even, I feel, like you said, something divinely deeper than that it's, you're not just an observer, you're a part of it. Like you're not just a part of what's happening in you. You're a part of what's happening everywhere. And it kind of leads me to something that I was thinking about today as I was in church was, I think our wellness, I don't think we can truly be well if it's always about my wellness and like about me and like about the central of I, right? Because I think it's about like, how are you well, but how are you sharing your wellness? And I don't necessarily mean in a strict like, what are you learning that you're teaching someone else? I mean like in an actual sense of you exist as a part of the rest of everything else. So how is your wellness influencing the rest of everything around you? We actually alluded to it last time, right? Like how is that wave that ripples through? How is that affecting others? And I think that at essentially, I don't feel well unless I'm contributing to the wellness of others. And I don't think that's a selfish, you could argue that's, from the evolutionary perspective, all this like, there's a survival mechanism there that if others are happy, I'm less threatened and all this. But if you're in a tank and all that goes away and there really is nothing threatened and you're really just residing with nothing to perceive, you still feel like you're a part of everything. So in a wellness sense, like I'm more well when I'm a part of everything else and when others are well. And I think that's why I viscerally and deeply do what I do, and I think you do what you do. But I really want our listeners who are not coaches, who are searching for their own wellness, to start to maybe have a homework assignment of like thinking about how can I help someone else be well this week to help my wellness. I don't